Hey there, soil mates. Welcome to Men Metal Mayhem, the podcast where the brothers men take a deep dive into the discographies of our favorite metal bands. I'm your host, Brother Paul, joined as ever by my two brothers and co-hosts, Brother John
What up?
and Brother Dave.
Oh, hey, oh.
Each season of the show, we are focusing on one band. In season one, Songs of the Damned, we are covering Soilwork. Today, we are discussing their searing 2000 sophomore scorcher, the Chainheart Machine. Join us in room number 99 as we face the Bullet Beast. All right. This album was released on February 8th, 2000, although it was primarily recorded a year previously in February of 1999. Guys, what were you doing in 2000?
Well, I was listening to Top 40 radio. I did listen to some radio stuff, but I think it wouldn't hurt to let people know what was on the radio at that point, just to kind of contextualize the local time. The week that this was released, the number one song was I Knew I Loved You by Savage Garden. And I don't actually remember that one at all. But I do definitely remember Smooth by Santana featuring Rob Thomas, which was number 5 on the top 40 charts, and All the Small Things by Blink 182, which was number 7 that week. So, Blink 182 got a lot of play for me back in the day. Not really Santana or Rob Thomas so much, but that was all over the radio, I remember.
It's
So,
it's wild that Smooth is 24 years old at this point, at the time of this recording, almost 25, because that song was everywhere.
yeah, as was All the Small Things.
Yeah.
Yeah, Blink was
But yeah, you
enormous.
you you personally, what was going on for you in 2000?
Oh man, in 2000, what the heck was I doing? It's hard to even remember. Well, right after 2000, I guess we were probably all living in a daze in the post Y2K world. Basically just glad to have survived what we thought might have been an apocalypse. Um, but
The
it
end
turned out
times.
to really be nothing. Yeah. And
Well, I mean, maybe we entered the tribulation period right then. Things have never quite been the same since 2000. You
yeah,
just got to do some funky evangelical math. It probably still works out.
it's been probably about times and half a time since then. But the new Willennium has ushered in a grand era of metal, I would say. And a lot of my favorite albums have been released post 2000. So, we'll kind of get into that. But man, what was I listening to back in those days? Well, there was a couple that got a lot of play for me that came out kind of mid to late 1999. Zayo's album Liberate Te Ex Inferus. I listen to that one all the time. Still, once in a while, pop that on, and I think that one still holds up. Slipknot's self-titled. I don't know if it was their debut because they had some album out that wasn't really widely distributed before that, but their big one came out in June of '99. That I was listening to pretty much on repeat. That was my Metallica, Dave.
But
uh,
yeah,
didn't
I,
leave the CD player in my car. Well, unless I was putting on Live from the Middle East by the Boss Tones, which I think came out in '98. That also was getting played all the time. A couple other ones, Coal Chamber Music came out in '99.
Mhm.
I like that one all right. It wasn't as good as their first album, I didn't think. And then Korn Issues, which also not as good as their prior album. That also came out in '99. So those are some of the big ones. A lot of sort of more like Christian metal and new metal in my car CD player at that time. But let's see, I would have been 17. So what, finishing up my junior year of high school? Yeah, because I graduated in 2001. So, finally had my license and I was probably driving around, going to shows, going to the CD store to buy CDs behind my parents' back. They probably wouldn't have wanted me to be listening to Slipknot and Cold Chamber and Korn and stuff like that if they were paying much attention. What about you guys?
Uh, well, 2000, would this have been when our small Christian school merged with the other small Christian school in Oshkosh?
So
Or
this,
would that
yeah,
be
my
1 year
junior year
later?
was the last year. So my senior year was the first year that Appleton Christian and Oshkosh Christian merged and became Valley Christian High School in Oshkosh, Wisconsin.
So
And I
that's
was the
going to come
first,
up between albums
yeah,
after this
pretty
one.
much.
So what the heck was I doing in my last year of Appleton Christian School? Man, I don't really remember a whole lot of those
Well,
times.
I think this, well, so this kind of dates back to late 1998, but Half-Life came out shortly before this album was recorded. I don't know if it may have had anything to do with the artistic, sort of, uh, what's the word for it? Inspiration behind any of the themes in this album. You played that a lot though, right, Dave?
Yeah,
Half-Life?
Half-Life is great. It was a good game. I only got it because I got Final Fantasy VII first, but we couldn't get it to install on our computer correctly. So I brought it back and got Half-Life instead.
And
And
your life
yeah,
was never the same.
probably was never the same. I think that game kind of got me into gaming for a good long while.
Yeah.
Um,
I feel like there's a lot of times just standing around in the computer room at the family house, and I would be watching you play games. Or in those days, we were probably all playing Heroes 3 because that one was a pretty constant
Hot Seat
computer
Heroes
game
3,
for us.
baby.
That is the best.
so good. And then musically, I think it was like new metal was getting big. Obviously, I was still spinning Metallica, and probably right around this time is when ska was taken off for us. I remember ska being big in like my senior year, so this was like 2 years before.
Oh, really?
But
Because Scott for me was big, like probably 97 and on, kind of like with the release of The Impression That I Get, or Let's Face It, was the album by the
I
Boss
think it
Tones.
took a while to grow on me.
Yeah,
I
could be.
changed slowly.
Well, you
You're
were
always out
so
there chasing new fads.
so heavily into Metallica, it's hard to just become a skanking ska boy with your checkered
Uh,
pants and your feather in your cap or whatever they
but
were
I do
wearing.
know that at this point we were playing RPGs on the
Oh,
regular, right?
yeah,
You
dude.
and me and Jerry and Nate spent many good weekends just
Yeah,
rocking
staying
out,
up all night just slamming Mountain Dews
slamming
and
dues, and
rolling them bones,
yep, Dr.
rolling
Pepper.
dice. Oh,
Uh,
Dr. Prune.
hell yeah.
Is that a prune flavored beverage? I don't know. That's what we were
That's what we
told at the time.
decided, or yeah, we're told or something.
It's the
But
color of prunes, the can is.
yeah, I mean that's kind of what I remember from that period. I feel like I just don't have too many memories of high school. Or yeah, I guess it was high school for me. It was like the second year, sophomore year.
Yeah. I would have been working at Shakey's Pizza back in those days. Actually, I don't know if I had this in my notes, but and I don't know exactly when this happened, but it was when I was working at Shakey's, or it became Fox River Pizza. So sometime in the 2000, maybe 2001 timeframe, I was like, so this was, College Ave. There's like the frontage road, and then it's kind of set back. There's a parking lot, and so there's a decent amount of space between this restaurant and College Avenue where a lot of traffic goes by. And I was out front just like kind of sweeping up and like fixing up the the doormat that everybody walks in on or whatever. And in those days I would always wear these camouflage pants, like green camo pants, and you could wear whatever pants at this job and just wear the Shakey's t-shirt or whatever. And some people drove past and they're like, there's no war. Just like yelled at me from their truck on the app.
I feel like you have a
uh,
surprising number of stories of
oh
people
man.
yelling shit at you
People
from
always,
cars.
yeah. Usually it's like, hey, fag, the gay bar is the other way. It's like, what are you talking about? I'm walking with my wife. This is like, what are you talking about? Stuff like that. But yeah, this time they're like, there's no war. So it must have been before 9/11. So it probably was in 2000 because after that there was a war and they wouldn't have said such a thing.
Yeah,
But
they would have
so it was
said,
probably
"We
around this
support
time.
you, the troops."
Yeah, they would have been like, thank you for your service. Also, are you not getting paid for being in the military? Why are you working at Shakey's for $7.25 an hour? But that always kind of makes me laugh when I think about that one. Paul, what were you up to back in these days?
Oh, well, I mean, surviving Y2K. I actually do vividly remember the switch over from 99 to 2000. I was reading a Hardy Boys book. I was
All the Hardy
11
Boys.
years old. I was in sixth grade. Um, but by that time, I was fully into industrial music. Fear Factory, Circle of Dust, Rammstein. Those were it for me, especially Fear Factory. And all my friends were, they were into the rap and new metal. Because I think Eminem was kind of coming out at this time, and kind of the big debate in new metal was, oh, are you into Limp Bizkit or Korn? And they even had that sweet kind of diss track that they collabed
All in the
on,
family.
All in the
I
Family.
haven't thought about that in a long time.
So, and this is, I think this is roughly the time when we discovered In Flames would have been right around
Yeah, right
this
around now.
right around now. So, because find out, I mean, In Flames released Clayman in 2000, and I vaguely remember, I think, being like, oh, like they just dropped a new album after we just discovered them. So I remember being excited about that. This is also when I got really into my bleep blop electro. Listened to a ton of bands from Metropolis Records like Apoptygma Berserk and VNV Nation and just all these European synth electro bands. But yeah, so I was in sixth grade, not really cruising around town or anything. I think I was maybe a year or two away from going to Scapleton Ska Fest, which happened kind of every spring or early summer. But I think sixth grade, I hadn't quite reached the age where I was, going to shows kind of solo or with my friends.
Well, speaking of local festivals, I believe 99 was the first Life Fest in Oshkosh. And then in 2000, so it'd be like a few months after this came out, because it was always, what, like around the 4th of July or sometime in the middle of summer. But the Newsboys played, and they were huge for me back in these days. And I just remember like they were on the main stage and it was totally packed. And I'm pretty tall, not one to typically crowd surf just because, are people gonna hold me up or just drop me? But someone's like, hey, come on, go up. And I was like, okay, cool. So they like lifted me up and I was crowd surfing for like over a minute, which is a pretty long time to like be up on people's hands, but that was a pretty cool, fun experience at, the Christian rock show.
Oh yeah, I mean, actually, it would have been around this time I went to the Power of One concert, which it
Oh,
was
hell
like a
yeah.
traveling Christian festival, and a Newsboys headline, like Audio Adrenaline was there, all the knockoffs of the pop bands, so like Stacey
Yeah.
Orico was
Was that
there.
the one where Newsboys came down like from the ceiling? Basically, they were lowered down on these big disc things, and they had like lights on their heads, and there's smoke, and they're looking around like they're
Oh, that
aliens
is
or spacemen or
absolutely
something.
possible.
Yeah.
So, going to the big one day, long big Christian event. I know they took an intermission in the middle and they went to like a gym across the street and they served us all pizza. So that's the Midwest for you, baby.
I don't remember that part.
All right. Well, moving along, we're gonna get to the year in metal. And so in 2000, I already said it. In Flames came out with Clayman, and I'll just say it, maybe their most consistent record.
It's a really good one.
Yeah, I think Colony, which came out the year prior, has some stronger individual tracks, but that album's really front loaded and then kind of tapers. Clayman,
Hmm.
consistent all the way through. Love
Oh
that
man,
album.
we're probably gonna have to do In Flames after we finish doing Soilwork, so we can dive into the details of these albums.
Well, we'll figure it out. But
I would have to listen to Clayman again. I mean, it's good, but Colony, come on, guys, Colony is
Colony's so
better.
good.
yeah.
Yeah, Colony is
Um,
better than Clayman.
we
I
also
I'm saying it now. Spoiler alert for season 2, maybe. Colony,
I'm right there
baby.
with you. But like they're both so good, but in different ways. Like you don't have to compare them.
right.
True. Also,
But
both
Colony
Studio
wins.
Fredman.
Yes. Speaking of which, Dark Tranquillity came out with Haven, a very kind of electronic driven album, which still holds a place in my heart.
It's a good one.
And then them Bueller boys with The Haunted made me do it. That was the album they had so actually Peter Dolving, I thought he was their second singer, but he was the original. And then he leaves after the first album and they bring in the other guy. Yeah, what's his name?
Oh, and then they
Caro or
brought
something.
Dolving back,
And then Dolving came back.
and
But
then
yeah,
they
so
decided, man, this guy's a lot of drama.
yeah, so but that was their follow-up record. Children of Bodom Follow the Reaper,
Oh,
which
hell yeah.
Yeah,
I
that
mean,
album's
That's a big one.
incredible.
undeniable. Sentence coming out with Crimson, which is this is the one where they're really hitting like, okay,
Yeah.
we're kind of a gloomy goth band and it's working for us.
Mm-hmm. So good.
And then Nevermore, Dead Heart and a Dead World. I remember
Incredible album.
I remember picking that up. Yeah, I got that and it just did not leave my record player. And then not an album, but Angela Gasso replaced Johann Leva in Arch Enemy
Nice.
that
I
same year.
think kind of ushering in Arch Enemy's best years.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Johann, I love what he did on the first Non-Exist record, but it, he's not, he wasn't the best fit for Arch Enemy.
Hmm. And
And
Angela Gasso ended up being, I think, kind of a role model for women in metal.
oh,
She's one
absolutely.
of the first ones that I remember. And now, like, women are kind of frequent.
Yeah.
It's still a sausage festival, but there's more of them.
Well, I remember you playing me an Arch Enemy song and being like, hey, listen to this singer. You know that's a woman, right? And I was like, huh?
Yeah,
In
that
sixth
blew
grade,
my
like,
mind too.
what?
Eyes bugging out.
Yeah.
And
Probably did the
what
same thing to me, or I was there at the same time because I was like, what? That's crazy.
Yeah. And
and
then
then
Pretty
like years
powerful
later,
growls.
yeah, like she's an incredible vocalist. And then years later, I saw them and was surprised. Like she's tiny. She's like 5'2" or something.
Oh, really?
So
I just imagine that she's like 6 feet,
no,
like
I'm
as
I'm
much of a
pretty sure
beast
she
as her
is like
voice
a very
sounds.
small person also.
That's
every
hilarious.
promo pic I've seen of her, she has a cowboy hat on. So she just looks
She
kind
and Warrell Dane would get along.
oh, hell yeah. And then another album that I want to highlight because I think Brother Dave and I, we both, God, this one both holds a place in our heart. Spineshank, The Height of Callousness, kind of that industrial tinged new metal.
Yeah, it's an incredible album. It still holds up. I'll throw
Absolutely.
that one on every now and then still.
Yeah.
Wait a
But
minute. Am I remembering right that Dave made some wild comment on Facebook that Spineshank was the original Soilwork or something like that?
in 2014,
Yeah,
Brother
what is
Dave
this?
wrote on Facebook, Spineshank is the original Soilwork. That was the post. I have no idea what it means. And the fact that you wrote it in 2014 is just insanity.
I
Dave, explain yourself.
I think I still stand behind it. I mean, they were doing a lot of the same stuff, and I think at this point in their careers, Spineshank was doing it better.
Well,
I
maybe I
mean,
need to listen to Spineshank. I
if
don't
we
know
were
that
to
I've really ever
compare
heard them.
the height of callousness to the two records that Soilwork has done at this time, absolutely Spineshank rates above.
Oh yeah.
But so just kind of the general scene in metal, whatever kind of industrial, rock and metal had been prevalent kind of in the 90s. That was sort of tapering off and dying. And kind of new metal, that was the king. Linkin Park released their debut in 2000. Korn was really hitting their stride. So that was just kind of what the landscape looked like, in addition to all of the, more true metal that we just highlighted.
Yeah. Well, there's some other
I,
kind of diverse ones that I want to mention too. Kalma, Swamp Lord came out in 2000. They're kind of like extreme metal, kind of along the vein of Children of Bodom, I guess you could say. Nightwish, Wishmaster came out that year. I think that got a lot of play for me.
yeah,
There's a
me
couple
too.
Nightwish albums that I listened to quite a bit. And then Symphony X came out with V, the new Mythology Suite, which I know that I played that quite a bit back then, although I haven't listened to them in quite a long time.
I was just listening to Symphony X earlier this week.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they're still awesome. Really like Paradise Lost and on. They got their mixing down, I think. Like their
Hmm.
early stuff is kind of hard to listen to, but like all the new stuff is just so solid.
Nice.
All
Um,
right.
in addition to those, I think there's one release in 2000 that stands head and shoulders above all others that we haven't mentioned. That is With Arms Wide Open by Creed.
Oh my God.
The
That
single,
is
the
not something that I would ever choose to put on, but I love
it
to
was
laugh about it.
I love to laugh about it. It was huge in the circles
Yeah.
we ran in
Oh, that's
back in
true.
those days also.
I
Oh
remember
man.
my drama teacher being like, "Hey, you're like a real like rocker, like metalhead, like you into Creed?
You know who else was a rocker?
You know who else had his arms wide open for you?"
Oh
Oh my God. Uh,
All right. Well, so that was kind of the state of the scene. And now we're gonna move on to Soilwork themselves. So, like a lot of metal bands, Soilwork has a revolving door of members. So let's see who actually made the cut, who's in, who's out. So on this album, we have Bjorn Speedstrid on vocals, Peter Witchers on guitar, Olaf Flink on bass, Carlos del Olma Olmberg on keyboards, and we got a couple guys that are just out of the band. Ludwig Schwartz on guitar is out. Jimmy Person on drums is out. The replacements: Olaf Renning, guitar, who Peter Witcher's uncle. Did
Do we
not
know
and
know
he was
his
that.
like the
like,
old he was like the old man of the band, right? He's like 10 years older than the other guys or something.
Yeah,
or
apparently
was
he
he
was
like
always
that
like trying to
uncle
hide
that's
his
younger than
age,
everyone?
in like band promo materials. But yeah, I wonder if it was just like, man, we lost our second guitarist, and Peter's like, uh, I know my uncle. Yeah, he's probably from Liverpool. I don't know. I can't do a Swedish accent. Like, my uncle will play guitar. So they got Olaf Renning on guitar and Henry Ranta on drums. He is in. And spoiler alert, I think great choice, based on
Oh
based on
yeah.
this album. Once again, this album was produced by Frederick Nordstrom. He also did In Flames and Dark Tranquillity the same year. Um, and moving on to the album itself, 9 tracks, which is two fewer than Steel by Suicide, but it's about 7 minutes longer. So they cut the number of songs, but they kind of got a longer time and just kind of letting the songs breathe a little bit. So you guys ready to get into it? Do the track by track?
Let's hit
I
it.
think I am.
All right. Track number 1, title track, The Chainheart Machine. And I'm just going to kick us off. And I have written down, fuck yeah. It's got this kind of industrial style open, just this driving aggressive verse with the melodic chorus. I mean, in my mind, what a banger.
Oh, hell yeah. Also, it's fun that the hidden track at the end just comes right back into this, which works if you're playing a CD on repeat. It doesn't really work on Spotify
Oh,
unless you set up a
this
playlist to put the first
era
song
of
after the.
streaming. Boy,
Yeah,
it's just really
so
ruined it. But
I know I want to pull out my CD and find a CD player so I can listen to it the way it was intended. But yeah, echoing what you said, I mean, there's this pummeling intro. This is just a banger that doesn't let up. And just out of the gate, you can tell the songwriting and the musicianship are improved and more polished than on Steel Bath Suicide. The production also a little bit improved. The mix is a little bit better, but it's still, I feel like throughout is maybe a little on the trebly side. But yeah, I mean, just right away, you're like, holy shit, this is
well,
some good fucking shit.
and plus, I think you and I, brother John, he's got some lyric that we will really, we both enjoy. He says, "Your
Oh, yeah.
suffering will be legendary even in hell."
Oh, yeah.
So,
There's a bunch of so that's a Hellraiser
yep.
reference, but
So
there's
that's
several movie references, like a bunch on Bullet Beast that I'll call out when we get to that one.
yeah.
But speaking of lyrics, there's like I think it's kind of funny, right around the 1 minute 12 second mark. According to the lyrics sheet, it's set the verse is self-absorbed, egotistical fuck, but it almost sounds like he kind of coughs or starts choking on his words and like just said, because like self-absorbed ego, fuck. Or something like that. It's like, what is going on with this dude? Is he like just choking and then he said fuck because he was messing it up and just he's like, leave it in, it sounds
like,
cool.
I listened to it multiple times and I cannot make out the word egotistical in there. It just is a jumble of like noises. And then he
It's
just says fuck afterwards.
just a bunch of phlegm caught in his throat.
But it works. It
Yeah, it
works
does.
so
It
well.
really does. Dave, any other special thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of right there with you on this one. It starts off, it's a great way to start off the album, and clearly their songwriting is better. Like there's so much more flow just throughout the entire song. And like the vocals and the music, actually it seems like there was some thought in how they should go together.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's still got a bit of weirdness with his vocal
It's like the cadence,
meter.
maybe.
Yeah, his
Yeah, the
meter and
meter.
cadence is still it needs a little work still, but like it's w very much better than
Yeah.
it was on Steel Bath Suicide.
At
I
least
wonder
on at least
too.
on this song.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I wonder too, like, how does everybody know English from a young age in Sweden? Because they're singing in English and writing in English, but it's like not their first language, presumably. I guess I don't know too much about
I
what
think
they speak day to day. I would assume Swedish,
I think they
but
speak
I wonder if that
Swedish,
maybe has something to do with it.
but I think they are taught it from a young age, and it's like every year of school they still take English because it's a big deal.
Yeah.
Well, again,
Well,
I mean, Michael Stane, he wrote or like translated the lyrics for Early in Flames, if I'm not mistaken. So they must have been writing in Swedish and then taking it to Michael and saying, "Can you, do our homework for us and make this English?" And he was like, "Yeah, I can do that."
Navna.
uh,
Any other thoughts on this one?
I mean, it's a
no.
bop.
Oh,
God,
it's
it's so
definitely a
good.
bop.
All right, moving on to track 2, Bullet Beast. David, what are your thoughts?
Um, I think it lacks Zaz. I'm
Oh my
being
God.
quite honest with you on this one.
Get out of here.
And Brother Paul, I wonder if you're gonna be with me on this point, is that the verse drums in particular, it's just that really repetitive slapping the snare on every beat, and it just does not do it for me. And it comes up on multiple songs on this album where it's just that really repetitive drum snare, drum snare, drum snare, drum snare.
Yeah, it's like the punk beat basically.
Yeah, and I
But
don't
Henry
like the punk
Ronta,
beat.
I don't know, he's a beast though, because he's throwing in all these cool fills and crazy little flair. More
He does.
so because there was a lot of that on Steel Bass Suicide, but maybe not so much extra flair. But
Yeah. And
he
like
knows how
he's
to keep it blistering, but keep it a little bit fun.
right. And he's absolutely a great drummer. But it's like when he gets into these parts where he's not throwing in any of that flair, which is the verses on this song, like he needs some flair on there. And I think there's one song later, potentially it's Possessing the Angels, where it's almost the same thing, but he is doing a lot more like little fills off the side, and it's not nearly as annoying of a beat
I'm
because
Yeah.
gonna
of it.
I'm gonna be like King Solomon and just split this right down the middle and say I agree with both of you. There's a lot of the rat-a-tat-tat-tat. Um, but it is he does do a lot more fills, and I think you're right on Possessing the Angels. I think he not to try to sound technical and be wrong, but it sounds like he's throwing like some triplets in there on top of the rat-tat-tats, so it like adds something, so it's not so monotonous.
Hmm.
I
Yeah. He
I
has
think
so many
he
different
does
like
so much
syncopated
more.
rhythms and
Yeah.
just like fun offbeat stuff that
Hmm.
I just
Yeah.
really enjoy. I think he's on 4 albums and and the drummer who takes his place is also really good, but I always really enjoyed listening to the drums that he came up with on the stuff that he was on. So,
And then drum talk aside, I think Bullet Beast kind of regresses from the first song and kind of brings back in a lot of their awkward transitions and just doesn't showcase strong songwriting like you get throughout the rest of this album. I think it's just one of the weaker compositions.
yeah, I don't know. At the same time, I thought there was some pretty sick riffs and some tasty licks throughout this song. And, whereas Steel Bass Suicide, some of their guitar, like wailing leads were kind of 80s sounding. I feel like they're kind of getting away from that and getting into those sort of dual harmonizing guitars that, the Soilwork sound is kind of showing through here. So kind of really getting my juices flowing with this, plus with those fast drum fills. Can't go wrong. And like I said before, there's a few fun movie references. Starts out with Mirror, Mirror on the Wall, of course. What is that? Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs or something.
Yeah.
But then at a minute and 4 seconds, he says red rum overdose, which is just a funny way to refer to lots of murder. And then at a minute 50, he's like, so you want to play rough? Say hello to my little friend. So I thought that was all. It's always fun when they just throw in a silly movie reference.
Yeah. I mean, my thoughts on this, it's not as strong as Chainheart Machine, but I think it does kind of show what their formula becomes, which is they do these kind of like really pounding aggressive verses and they try to do the catchy choruses. I think there's pinch harmonics all over this one. I do really like kind of the bit at 2 minutes 50 seconds when it goes kind of into that kind of slower riff and then the solo starts coming in almost underneath it. So like that the dun 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 is playing and then he starts like doing the solo underneath. I actually enjoy that. Um but yeah, I think it's a fine kind of solid song.
Agreed.
Brother
Agree to
Dave is
disagree. No, I
Dave,
Million
mean,
Dave is looking
flame. Are
askance at
we?
us as saying
no,
like
the thing is, like, every song off this album is good, but like they just kind of lack zazz sometimes.
Oh,
well,
There's not enough to
get
set them apart
get
for
out of
me.
here.
well, we'll get
The
into it.
more the more I listen to this, the more I was like, oh my God, how did I sleep on this album? It was underrated. And it kind of made me think that initial Reddit post of the ranking of the albums, this came in pretty low, like towards the bottom, maybe
Mhm.
one or two away from the bottom. And there were a lot of people who were like, oh my God, you did the Chainheart Machine dirty like, what the fuck? And now that I've listened to it a bunch, it's like, yeah, what the fuck? This is really good. But at the same time, everything else I feel like is also really good. So, it's kind of hard to choose if you're going to
Again,
rank them.
Brother John's position is everything is good. There is no
Ah,
discernment.
It's all
Uh,
number one.
everything
can't,
is awesome.
can't they
Everything
just
is
all get
cool
along?
when you're
Um,
listening to
so
Soilwork.
let's move on to track number 3, Million Flame. And Brother John, why don't you kick us off?
Oh
Tell us your
man.
thoughts.
So again, with more of the harmonizing solos, this is another straight up bop in my opinion. And again, it kind of stood out to me. The mix feels a little trebly on the drums, and I feel like maybe that was kind of part of the initial reason that this album didn't instantly pull me in the first time I listened to it. I was like, the mix is not really gripping me. But now listening to it a bunch of times, it's like, okay, I can see past that and see into these cool drum beats and fills and the searing guitars they've got going on. This song, though, maybe we need to talk about some of the lyrics here. Whenever he has the word speed in one of the lyrics, it's almost questioning, is
Is
this
it
like something
self-referential? Yeah.
self-referential? Because, so I'll just recite this section of the lyrics. He says, inside you, I feel you from inside, satisfaction built on sin. Condemn every, I feel like he says condemn, like he might pronounce that weird. I'd have to listen to it again to be sure. But condemn everyone or everything who says what is wrong. Drown in my eyes, no need to deny. I scream, feel my devil inside you, gaining, reaching diabolic speed. So what's he talking about? Is he talking about fucking?
I'm pretty sure that this song is about getting a prostitute in a red light district.
I I think it might be, and it's probably a little autobiographical number. I think. I
Could
don't know.
be.
This is a very horny album if you read the lyrics. There's no other way to put it.
Yeah,
Bjorn Speedstrid is working through a couple of things.
I mean, he's probably a young guy at this point, probably early 20s. So, you know,
He's reaching diabolic speeds at this point.
oh, hell yeah. Feel the devil inside you.
yeah, I mean, for me, this
Gay
one,
egg. Reaching diabolic speed.
I mean, there's pinch harmonics all over the background. I like, there's kind of a solid solo at 2:45, and then it does this kind of faux fade out and then comes back with the bass riff. And I'm like,
Oh,
it's a
yeah,
little
dude.
interesting. I like that. That's,
That is, yeah, around the
This whole
3 minute
song
mark.
is groovy.
yeah.
I
Then,
think it's one of the grooviest ones on the album.
yeah, they bring it back with like the breakdown hard. Like you could
Yep.
really open up the pit to that section of the song and, do some spin kicks, like go punch some people or whatever.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, just to add a couple of things to what you've said, they've got a cool pick scrape into a pinch harmonic, which is awesome. They do that a couple of times in this song. The groove is so good, and I feel like they're still doing that 80s solo thing, but I think it rocks.
Yeah, nothing
Of
nothing
like,
on this like said like cheesy 80s bullshit. It said awesome 2000s melodic death metal.
yeah,
That's what
and
it
it
said
was
to
nice
me.
on there. It's nice on that resurgence to hear the bass get to take the front just for a little while.
Yeah, a little mini bass solo.
I mean, like
Hmm.
bass, it truly is the foundation of the band. So, nice to see him getting some love.
Yeah.
Um,
Got
all
to call
right.
it out when we see it.
So we're gonna move on to track number 4, Generation Speed Kill, parenthetical, nice day for a public suicide. And my brothers, I'm gonna have to open up one of our segments, lyrical tactics, vocal gymnastics.
Lyrical tactics, vocal gymnastics.
Because boy, I mean, we gotta talk about this one. Generation Speed Kill, Operation Seed Spill. Uh
Speed. kill? Is this another autobiographical song? What seed is he spilling?
Well,
Is this
went
a
to
song about onanism? Spilling the seed on the dusty ground?
went to songmeanings.com, our good friends there, and there are a total of three posts, and all of them are gold. The first one I want to bring up is by Joe Dull. Operation Seed Spill? Maybe it's slashing bags of seed. Or masturbation. Lol.
Just farming, cutting open your seed bag and spreading it on the ground.
Then I'm just going to do a snippet of the one by Hell Dweller. Uh, I am in mixed opinions as to what this song is about. The part, quote, angel face filled with sin, I will lick it clean, can either be a metaphor for a slut or drug, or this entire song about the pleasure of killing someone.
All these things, they're very related.
Uh, yeah.
Sex, drugs, and rock and roll, baby.
And then the third one is by a guy named Bill. Um, and it's basically a manifesto about how this song is a political commentary about Gen X being addicted to MTV. Um, and at one point he uses the sentences, the MTV or whatever is on the quote TV screen becomes the opiate that the person draws pleasure from to escape the monotony of life. Um, and while I think that the entire comment is just like a desperate cry for help, I don't think he's entirely wrong. Because
Right.
it does.
It almost seemed a little bit like autobiographical in that, like, Soilwork, the band, is, the entertainment, and they are like saying, treasurize this entertainment now. It's like, is that talking about mindless consumerism, or maybe people consuming what Soilwork is putting out? I don't know. Could be maybe a little of each. Could have multiple meanings.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm
it does seem to be about generally, fame and just, yeah, consumerism and people demanding entertainment and, no regard for how that affects people.
I took it a little more literally. I think that this song is about making porn.
Hmm.
Like you've got your angel face with sin, I'll lick it clean or whatever, right? Like you got your hot young female and she's full of sin and treasurize this entertainment by public demand. We work for pleasure. Like I think it fits. And I think that the public suicide is like ruining your reputation. A
Well,
suicide of reputation by making porn.
well, and possibly the people who, consume it, because it says one of the lines is in a trance, last dance for Mr. Moralize, as though someone is falling prey to the
Right, yeah,
pitfall
and
of
then
watching pornography.
there's the moral undertones, which I
Mhm.
don't think would really fit in a more just like general
Yeah.
entertainment setting.
Dave, you might have cracked this one.
Yeah, this is my predator too.
Yeah, you figured it out. Also, at the very beginning, maximize my pleasure, maximize my pain, sort of like a BDSM thing, sort of Hellraiser reference as well.
Demon
Bringing
to
that
some,
again.
angel to others.
He'll lick it clean. Angel face to some, demon face to others.
All right. Well, I think we're gonna close up lyrical tactics and vocal gymnastics now. You guys got any thoughts on the song itself?
I think the song itself is kind of forgettable. It's one of the less good ones on this album.
I'll
Um,
actually agree with Dave on that. I didn't have any major comments written down or thoughts, so I think, I don't dislike it. It's not one that I would skip, but it wasn't like a standout to me.
it has the same drum stuff that I'm not huge that I mentioned on Bullet Beast. It does have some cool guitar wizardry in like the second half of the verse and in the chorus where they're like doing tapping or something kind of behind the vocals, which I think is a cool move where you're not just doing chords, you've actually got some like harmonies playing. Um, and I like that they're doing chuggy rhythm riffs that aren't just chords. Like they are moving around a little bit, but at the same time, the riffs that they've written aren't like memorable. So they're heading in a right direction, but I think that this song is kind of a miss.
100% agree. I really only remember Operation Seed Spill. Um,
Yeah. Yeah,
that's
it stand out because of the goofy lyrics.
yeah. So moving on to, I think it's track number 5 we're up to now, Neon Rebels. And for me, this is, along with the previous song, kind of where the album starts to lose some steam for me. This song, in my notes, I wrote this song just exists. It's here. It's in the album.
I don't know. I thought this one was kind of another blistering scorcher. There's the pummeling drums. They've got riffage that doesn't let up.
Here's
I don't
where I'm
know.
going to
I
have
thought,
to agree with John.
yeah. See, Dave,
What
you
the
know what you're
hell? The
talking
tables have
about once in
turned.
a while. Yeah. Paul, listen to this one again. You'll see what we're talking about.
And this is one of the few on this album where they actually play around with time signature too, which is kind of fun. They switch between 4/4 and 3/4 between the verse and the chorus, I think it is, and then they go into a little tresillo section, which is like 3 plus 3 plus 2, which is neat. Uh, they did a lot of like rhythm time signature stuff on the previous album, but it's almost entirely absent here. So I liked it. I like that stuff because it keeps the rhythmic experience interesting for me to have a little variety in there.
Yeah. But it doesn't, I mean, I guess I didn't even notice too much of that. So, like, it didn't
That's
seem
when you
too
do it
proggy
right.
and like
Yeah,
inaccessible.
right.
Like, to me,
There's
this was just like, yeah, fuck yeah. But, to you, you're like, oh, they're all over the place with their technical numbers and what have you.
yeah, and that's I think when you know you've done it right is when people aren't like, this is weird. It's got like a weird mix of time signatures. It's like it all flows really well despite
Yeah.
changing. Yeah, I like
And
it.
again, I have no idea what he's really talking about in this one. Kind of some of the lyrics sound like sort of a post-apocalyptic thing with neon rebels rising in Galaxy 2001, whatever that might mean.
Well, this is
But
just an Arch Enemy song in terms of lyrics. Random people rising, sort of a metal revolution, just general themes that Arch Enemy would sing about.
and in this one they do say riding in the winds at the speed of light. They are always riding on something in their songs. Last time they were riding on steel wheels, we found out, and now they're riding in the winds. So where
There
will
are
they ride next?
there are some lyrical touch points that he absolutely goes back to time and again.
Speaking of
Steel.
riding, maybe they would be a big fan of the Apple Dumpling Gang Rides Again, that old movie that was probably from the 90s. I don't remember when that came out. You can cut that.
Absolutely
Leave it
not.
in. Leave it in.
But we're leaving it in. Little slice of our life. Apple Dumpling Gang. That seems to be kind of
I have not thought of those movies in forever till just now, but might have to rewatch them with the kids and see if they still hold up.
they won't. But they'll be a good
Hey,
time.
Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. We watched that. That one holds up.
Nice. All right, so let's move on to track number 6, Possessing the Angels. Brother Dave, kick us off.
Oh, possessing the angels. Like the the solo is nice and it's got a cool Latin flair to it. I like that. But the rest of it is kind of forgettable to me. Him screaming, possessing the angels is memorable. But I don't really remember this song. I feel like that's where you were with Neon Rebels.
You wrote down or just said exactly what I wrote down. I wrote more of the same, drifting into mediocrity. Even the decent solo couldn't save this.
I thought the solo was pretty fun. And
It
it goes for
is.
like a good minute. It's like a pretty long one
Yeah, it's a
too.
pretty big one.
And like offhand, I can't recall exactly how it goes, but there's three different, I don't know if it's the verse or what, but there's like kind of a cool riff or sort of a set of riffs. It's at like 25 seconds, starting at about a minute and three. And then I think they come back and do it once more. But I don't know. I kind of thought the little chuggy riff that they had was kind of fun. But, now I can't even remember how exactly it went. So maybe it is forgettable. When I was listening to it, I was like, oh, this is fun. Now I don't know what it sounded like.
Yeah.
That's kind of a lot of my thoughts on this album. But as you're in it, you're like, yeah, it's okay. And then it's immediately gone.
But that's a lot of my thoughts about songs in general, I think, unless for some reason it really sticks in your head. It's like I couldn't hum this for you after hearing it.
I think that's how you experience life.
Yeah.
You have it and then you forget
I
almost
am
immediately.
I am the guy from Memento, just constantly resetting my frame of reference.
Except all
That's
your
why
tattoos are like, yeah, I like this. And you're like, huh, yeah, I like this.
All right.
Exactly.
So already we're on to track 7, Spirits of the Future Sun, which I believe the end of Possessing the Angel bleeds right into this one. Like they flow together. Um the outro goes right into the intro of this song, which I really like this intro. I wrote down it
Oh
gives
yeah.
vibes of like a solitary Viking on a mountaintop, just kind of playing his guitar. And I like the idea of this song. It's something I think a little more down tempo, and they're trying to kind of change up the pace, but it doesn't quite work. And boy, is Speed Strid really just trying to throw a lot of words in there. His concept of meter is non-existent on this song, especially. He's just like, back it. Let's throw them all in.
I don't disagree with you about Mr. Strid. Uh, I think the song kind of slaps, though. I think there's a lot of good stuff in here. Um,
Agreed.
the the main riff, like the intro and the second riff, that ends in like this fun trill thing that they do on the guitars, which I think shows up in later Soilwork songs also. I'm thinking specifically Death in General from The Ride Majestic from 15 years after this album, uh, which is just fun guitar work. And one thing they're doing here in the chorus is the guitars and the vocals are giving each other the space that they need to each like shine and complementing each other, which is something they don't always do. They're still learning to nail that. But like they have the kind of rising guitar riff as he's going spirit. And then they go of the, and they have like the two big hits on the guitar. And like it all kind of works together really well. And then
Kind
you
of
hit
sounds
this,
like he's saying "ove though." Like he pronounced it a little funny.
yeah, yeah, a little bit.
Ove thou, future son.
And then solos wise, I feel like we got some more 80s solos with some big boomer bends in there. And I think they're fun. I I like their new harmonized stuff also, but I like their big 80s solos back when they had them here.
Well, I don't have too
Brother
much to
John.
add to what Brother Dave just said. I think you encapsulated it perfectly.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, I think you're yeah, probably more charitable to this one than I am. I like the idea of it. It just doesn't work totally for me. But you know.
Hey, fair.
That's exactly what lacks zazz means.
All right. So already we are on to the penultimate track, Machine Gun Majesty. And Brother John, why don't you kick us off with this one?
Well, this is one where he's like, kill, kill, machine gun majesty. That'll stick in your head. So I can remember that part, anyways. But again, this is another unrelenting and furious sonic assault, which I could get behind. Also, going to bring back the mini segment, Bring the Mosh, because at about 3 minutes and 31 seconds, this song breaks it down pretty hard and adds some kind of wanky guitar solo over the top, too. So, while you're doing your spin kicks in the pit, beating people down, get to listen to a nice little guitar solo, too. I like it.
Brother Dave, do you have thoughts about this one?
I have thoughts in the chorus. I really like it when he says machine gun. They're doing like galloping chugs underneath it, which sound like a machine gun. Uh
Your
which
face lit up when you said that.
it's fun when the music can match like the lyrical content itself. I think that's a fun extra level. Uh so the chorus is kind of fun on here. I feel like the rest of the song is kind of forgettable though.
Well, that's I have much the same. There's lyrically a lot of talk about steel on this one.
I mean, that's a classic Soilwork go-to.
Right. And then God, most of the song, kind of the last half of it, is taken up by a bunch of solos, one of which they brought in this guy, Matthias Eklund. They brought him in for, and
He's a big name.
he's a big name.
He's a big name in metal guitar. I feel like a lot of people outside of metal guitar don't know who he is, but like among metal guitarists, he's a big name.
And apparently he did a solo on Steel Bath Suicide. I don't know exactly which song he was featured on. That wasn't readily available. But boy, it's a noodle fest, and I don't think that it works, especially the one by Mr. Eklund. It just,
Well,
He's got a
yeah.
style that is
And
hard to get
bro-
into.
and Brother
So
John,
I found an old interview as I was just perusing online, finding out some information about this album. And Eklund is endorsed or was endorsed by Comparison Guitars, which Peter Witchers then became endorsed by them as well. So he was kind of talking about that in this interview from, like 24 years ago or so. And he said that Eklund would do this thing where, just kind of making crazy noises on the guitar by using a vibrating dildo on it. And they actually did that. He says in the interview, he says, it's like the power drill that Van Halen uses. In the song Machine Gun Majesty, there is a machine noise. Well, that's the dildo. It was so fucking funny when he brought that into the studio. And I think he's talking about the section right around the 4 minute, 11 second mark where it has some kind of wanky sounds. But, this is, they incorporated a dildo into the song. So there you have it.
as I said, this is the horniest album that Soilwork has ever put out. But yeah, I mean, boy, they just kind of noodle around, and there's the Eklund solo. It's just like I don't need any of this. So this is one where they probably should have cut it down to just 2.5 minutes.
Just cut it down to only a couple minutes of dildos on guitars, and everyone would have been happy.
Yeah, I mean, this song is like 5 minutes long.
Well, they heard your complaint about the first album where nothing was more than 3 minutes, and they decided they would rectify
It
that.
wasn't a complaint. I thought that they did a good job, like not overstaying their welcome. And I think on this album, they kind of do on some of these songs. They could have, they maybe didn't have 5 minutes worth of ideas for this song.
You just repeat things a couple
It
times.
sure didn't. Um, and already that brings us to the last track, Room number 99.
Where we get yet another cum reference.
Yeah. Well, let's dive into it.
Spit or swallow. That's a fact.
Hell yeah. It is a
Uh,
fact. It's like you got to choose one or the other, what it's going to be. After you
yep.
lick it off the angel or demon face, whatever it is, it's like spit or swallow. That's
Yep. I'm going back. Going back. Whatever that means.
uh,
Oh,
well,
Bjorn.
I really like this one. I feel like it's got a fun, powerful chorus. The vocals and guitar riffs come together very nicely. And there's some fun solo-y, dually guitar kind of stuff starting at about 2 minutes and 25 seconds. Then they really kind of crank it up a notch at about 2 minutes and 37 seconds, and they just kind of let it go for a bit. It's fun. I like it.
So anytime somebody says that's a fact, I just think of I think it's in the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles theme song
Oh
where
yeah.
they're introducing each other and somebody says, "That's a fact, Jack." You know?
Probably Michelangelo.
It would be, yeah. And I mean, not just, talking about spitting or swallow, but I wrote down that Speed is just he's spitting all his lyrics here. Like his delivery style is very just like he's just bleh, spitting them out. I don't know. It's fine.
It's different from on the first song where he kind of swallows all that phlegm and then says fuck. Now he's just spitting it out like at a frenetic pace.
And it comes full circle because once this one ends, there's, like a minute of silence and then goes into kind of a industrial bit that loops around and matches up perfectly with the intro to the Chainheart Machine. So there we have it. Any last thoughts on this song?
I
Loved
feel
it.
like I'm the complete opposite. I thought that this was probably the worst song on the album.
I liked it a lot.
There's also like the weird vocal part with like sounds like a woman like hidden back in the mix going to my friends like in the middle of the chorus, and even I read the chorus lyrics, it just doesn't make any sense what it means or
Hmm.
why this woman is mixed in here weirdly. It's lyrically a strange song. Um, musically, I don't even remember any part of it.
I
Hmm.
remember that
Maybe
it
she
happens.
maybe she's the housekeeper of at room number 99, fixing it up at the
Yeah.
hotel.
And seeing room number 99 just makes me think of Devin Townsend on Strapping Young Lad, room 429, which is a much better song about a room with a number.
Hmm. Interesting.
All right. Uh, well, that's it for the track by track. Brother John, you want to take us into our rankings? Remind everybody of our patented six-tier system.
Oh, well, so this next segment is called Bop or Flop, where we describe whether the album slaps or if it's crap. And it is, as you say, a patented six-tier ranking system where the numbers could go from six all the way down to one. Six being our top score. Doesn't get better than that. A five would be a banger, one that we could easily listen to on repeat. A four would be an album that slaps, definitely very solid, worth listening to. Whereas flops, if we rank it a three, it lacks zazz, nothing special, somewhat forgettable. A two is crap, not very good at all. And a one, it belongs in a garbage can. Actually, dog shit, should not be listened to unless you are an auditory masochist. Maybe it's just me, but for me, this album, I'm going to rank it a five. It's a banger. I could easily listen to this on repeat. And in fact, I have been for the last, a couple of weeks pretty much. I've listened to this a ton of times. Spotify Wrapped is going to be out, I don't know, in like a month. I wonder how many plays Soilwork is going to have on that. It's going to be dominating my Spotify Wrapped for this year because it's been like most of what I've been listening to lately. But, final thoughts. I think this album has a lot of good, fast riffage. So for a sonic assault that comes in fast and doesn't let up, this is just a ticket. It's got some good screaming vocals, not really the diverse range that kind of comes out really starting on the next album of Predator's Portrait. But sometimes, you just want something that's a little bit more aggressive and doesn't let up. It pummels for sure, has plenty of awesome guitar work mixed in with the blistering heat to bring the good mellow death vibes. Overall, very solid. 5 out of 5 or 5 out of 6.
Just out of 5.
Brother Dave, why don't you follow up and give us your ranking?
This album is, it's an important stepping stone for Soilwork. I think compared to Steel Bath Suicide, they've definitely upped their composition game. The vocals are a little less obnoxious. The mix is a little better, but it's still pretty rough. And where this one flows better, I feel like there's less about it that stands out. So like Steel Bath Suicide had higher highs and lower lows. This is just kind of coasting along in the middle, more or less. And so it ranks about the same for me. I think it still lacks zazz. Just lacks it in a different sort of way.
All right.
King
Well,
Solomon, are you going to split this baby again?
uh, no, because I thought that your ranking of a banger, a 5 out of 6, was virtual insanity. I'm right there with Brother Dave. I mean, this album I think starts out with a banger. Like prior to doing this podcast, I really hadn't listened to this one at all. But boy, the Chainheart Machine title track, I'm like, this is great. It reminds me of a more aggressive. So there was a Swedish industrial band called Violent Work of Art who I was really into, and it reminds me of like a faster, more aggressive version of one of their songs. I was like, hell yeah. Okay, I'm into this. But then there's a couple good moments, but it sort of peters out into an unmemorable noodle fest. I mean, this is a really guitar solo heavy album, and not all of those guitar solos are successful. Um, I think they make some great strides since Steel Bath, and they're really refining their formula. I think they got maybe the right members now. Um, and you can see what they're trying to become, but it's just not there, and it just lacks zazz. I think it's a step above Steel Bath because on an uncharitable day, I would rate that one crap. This one, there's some, I'll go back to a song or two on here, consistently, but the album as a whole, no, it just lacks zazz.
Someday you guys will like a Soilwork album. Hopefully
One of these
someday
days,
soon.
I think that part of it also is that like I know there's such better albums coming up. So like
Well,
if we're
I'm
starting off with this being a banger,
I'm
where
perfectly
where do we
comfortable
go from here?
rating everything a
This
6
is true.
because
This
I love
is
them all.
Yep.
But
No sense of the big picture, John.
Right.
uh
And I
well, maybe
also
we'll
have
have
no,
to create a whole new ranking system.
we need one just for John. So we have the true
Yeah.
ranking system with me and Dave, and then John has his own, whatever wall art he's doing, beautiful mind style. I think also I have no history with these first couple albums. I didn't listen to them, back in the day. I'm listening to them now kind of for the first time, and I think a lot of the music that sticks with me, I have such a nostalgia about it,
Yeah.
or like it
Maybe
happens at
it's not
meaningful
that
times in my life. Whereas
Maybe not that it lacks zazz, it lacks the nostalgia factor for you.
Yeah, this one also just lacks zazz. All right. Well, soil mates, that is all for this episode. Stay tuned for the next episode where we will discuss Soilwork's Savage 2001 album, A Predator's Portrait. Until then, may the metal be with you, my brothers.
And also
with
with you.